We have a story about
Okay,
a guy who got, I was going to say, who got fined by the government. Okay, now
that's
you
true.
go.
He did. So we've talked before about you having to have your trust certification and your registration, and is that important or not? And what does enforcement look like, or anything like that? Well, we found the first person I believe who has ever been fined in any way, or basically in trouble in any way, for not having their trust certification is a man in Columbus, Ohio. But it's not like we would have expected it to happen. What actually happened is that he violated an Ohio law. The FAA was not involved in this law. Um, and there's an Ohio law that I've linked. Is that second link if you want to pull it up there? I pulled up
Sure.
the code, the Ohio code, so you could get a good idea here. The
Exciting.
problem is the FAA defines drones as aircraft. So
Sure.
what has happened is Ohio has used a blanket rule for aircraft registration. That means that because UAS is an aircraft, they can fine you or actually put you in jail in this case for 90 days if they want for not having registration for your aircraft, and that includes UAS because they are an aircraft. So it's kind
Okay.
of rough because you would think this law was written to protect aircraft because you would think an aircraft is important to have registrations for.
Yeah,
But when
yeah,
you think
yeah.
about a drone, it feels like it is not in the same class. However, they're using a blanket law to apply because aircraft applies. So basically, this guy is either going to get a $500 fine, 90 days in jail, or both, which is a very weird way, I would say, to set up your fine structure, right? It's like $500 or 90 days in jail. It's kind of like
Yeah, I
weird,
mean,
but
I think a lot of people would take the $500. You could probably make
yeah, well,
500 bucks in 90
he does not
days.
get a choice. I'll say the judge
Oh,
gets a
yeah.
choice. So the judge will be deciding, I believe, at the end of the month here,
It
what
sounds
happens to
like
him.
it sounds like it wasn't just that he didn't have his papers, but also he was flying the drone over the stadium during a football game. Uh,
No, that's the
no.
whole thing here. So the whole thing here is there was no TFR, there was no confusion, there was no reason he was not allowed to
So
fly
he
there
was
legally
allowed to
at
fly
all.
there.
He was 100% allowed to fly there, and that's why he's in trouble for not having his trust certificate.
Oh, I see. Exactly like we said. It's going to be
Yes.
the thing they ding you for when they don't
Now,
have anything else to ding you for.
now here's what I'm going to say. I did a lot of research on this. This article, Aero News, claims that he was also in trouble for not having a 107. However, he would not have had to have a 107 in that situation because he's not in a TFR. He's not in like all those kind of
Well,
things.
and he
My
probably was
guess
just doing a recreational flight.
My guess is because it's not on any of the paperwork I could find, it's not in the original arrest report or anything that I could find. My guess is he's actually in trouble for not having his 44809 registration and his
Mm.
trust registration. He got two
Oh,
violations, but they're not defined. So my guess is his drone was not registered
how
and he
can
did not have his trust.
I want to ask, but I think I'm going to figure it out. How
Yeah.
can the state of Ohio fine you for not having your federal
So
registration? It's not that he wasn't registered, it's that he couldn't produce the registration
it's
because he didn't have it.
correct because
I
yeah,
see.
because the Ohio code says to use an aircraft here, you must have a valid aviator's license.
I
and
see.
they are basically saying that if you fail to exhibit that license, no matter how you fail to exhibit it, you're in
Right.
trouble, right?
So they're saying,
Yeah.
if you're driving a car on the streets of Ohio, you must have a valid driver's license of some kind and be able to
Yeah.
produce it.
Yes.
And so they're not fining you for not having a license, they're fining you for being unable to produce it.
Though I will
Yeah.
say, in this case, I believe this also does include it includes both not being able to exhibit it
Hmm.
and not having it. Um,
Oh.
they
I
define it as
mean,
no person shall operate an aircraft within this state unless such aircraft is licensed and registered by the United States.
there you go.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That is what when the trust test came out, everybody, and I think including me, I'd have to go back and look at my video, but basically said, this is dumb. This is a hoop you have to jump through. It is trivial, and you should just go ahead and do it because if you don't do it, they're going to
Yeah.
use it when they're fishing for something to ding you for. The guy
Correct. And
should,
it
the guy, I
seems
mean, the guy should
from
have had his
from
registration and his trust test, although that's a little
yes.
bit of victim blaming. I don't
From
know.
what we can tell, from what the story reports and from the other stories report, and from the narrative that was given, it seems like the cops thought he was not allowed to be there because he was at the stadium. and that he ended up getting the two things that they could nail him with, which were the lack of his registration and trust, instead of him getting in trouble for like not having a 107 or being in a TFR or anything like that.
This is exactly.
Yeah.
It's so disheartening. He had every
Yeah.
right to be there. He wasn't breaking the law, and then they were just like, "Fine, what can we get you for?" And the more of
Yeah.
these regulations that pop up, the more bullshit things there are that they can get you for.
100%. Yeah.
And that sucks because like I want to say, he wasn't doing anything dangerous. He probably was allowed to fly there.
Yeah.
Well,
It's unfortunate.
if at
Let
all
this be a-
possible,
Yeah.
register your drones and take the trust test. If only so when you get hassled, you can just be like, "Fine, here it is."
Yes.
Yeah.
Can give the cops a reason to leave you alone.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.